It started with glitz, glamour, and promises too perfect to ignore. The man behind it all was David Langston, a charming, well-dressed former Hollywood executive with connections that ran deep into the A-list world. He wasn't just selling investments, he was selling access. Private parties with celebrities, backdoor deals with film studios, early shares in blockbuster productions. Langston had it all. Or so everyone thought. He claimed he could turn any investment into double-digit returns in months. "We're talking red carpet-level deals," he said during one of his infamous private presentations at a Beverly Hills estate. His pitch was irresistible. Backed by fake paperwork, staged celebrity endorsements, and a network of actors and influencers who swore by his genius. People didn't just believe in his plan, they believed in him. Among the first to buy in were mid-level celebrities, TV stars, influencers, former athletes. They were used to fame, but not wealth management. And Langston played that vulnerability perfectly. He offered them exclusive slots in his film fund, promising they'd be paid out before anyone else. One former sitcom actor said, "He made me feel like I was finally part of the inside circle, like I wasn't just someone watching from the outside." It wasn't just actors. Personal trainers, makeup artists, retired athletes, and even some financial advisors got caught in the glow. Word spread fast. If Langston was taking on new investors, you had to act now. People cashed out savings, refinanced homes, and even borrowed from family to get in before the last round. But beneath the surface, there were no movies, no studios, no deals. Just a shell operation moving money from new investors to pay the old ones. Classic Ponzi architecture dressed in designer suits and champagne flutes. And while the victims toasted their early success, the foundation of lies grew more unstable with every passing day. The cracks didn't show immediately. For over 2 years, investors received steady returns. Statements that showed impressive growth, payouts that arrived on time, and emails filled with vague but confident updates. Langston's charm held it all together. He threw lavish parties at rented mansions, hired celebrity DJs, and made sure the right faces were always in the crowd. Photos flooded Instagram, influencers posing with Langston, champagne in hand, captions reading, "Next big thing." But behind the scenes, panic had already set in. Langston was constantly juggling cash, moving money between accounts to cover early withdrawals. The scheme had grown too big, too fast. He was now managing over $300 million in assets, most of which didn't exist. To buy time, he faked audits and created dummy companies that mimicked real film studios. Even seasoned investors were fooled. One ex-NFL player invested $12 million, thinking he was backing the next Marvel-sized franchise. He would later say, "I should have known when there were no scripts, no directors, just hype." Still, few questioned anything, because questioning meant risking access. Langston had built an empire not just on lies, but on fear of missing out. Victims competed to invest more. "If you don't double your stake, someone else will," he warned one client. The pressure worked. People kept buying in, until someone asked the wrong question. A retired banker, quietly skeptical from the beginning, requested to visit one of the studio offices listed in Langston's pitch deck. What he found was a mailbox in a WeWork space and a locked door with no nameplate. He started digging. Within weeks, the first whisper of trouble hit the press. "Is Hollywood's secret film fund a scam?" the headline read. It was buried deep on a finance blog. But it was enough. In the days that followed, the calls started. Investors couldn't reach Langston, emails bounced, his assistants vanished. The offices were cleared out. And, like that, the illusion began to collapse, fast, messy, and with millions unaccounted for. The fallout was brutal. Investors scrambled for answers, but there was nothing to grab onto. No customer service, no legal teams, no refund process. Just silence. Some still refused to believe it was over, clinging to the idea that Langston was just laying low until the press cooled down. But that illusion shattered when the FBI raided his rented penthouse in Malibu. He was gone. So were his luxury cars, his assistants, and over $80 million in traceable funds. Panic spread like wildfire. A-list victims tried to bury their names from the headlines, hiring PR teams to distance themselves. But mid-tier celebrities, influencers, and athletes weren't so lucky. They had no buffer, and the media pounced. One former reality TV star broke down during a podcast interview saying, "I trusted him with everything. Now I have to sell my house to stay afloat." Another, an Olympic gold medalist, quietly filed for bankruptcy. The stigma wasn't just financial, it was personal. No one wanted to admit they'd been fooled. What made it worse was that many victims brought others in. Friends, family, business partners. They didn't just lose their own money, they lost relationships. A makeup artist who invested $70,000 sobbed on camera saying, "My cousin put in $40K because I told her it was safe. She won't speak to me anymore." Lawsuits flooded in, but there was little hope. Langston had built his scam so cleverly that even the legal trail was a maze of shell companies and offshore accounts. Victims were left fighting over scraps. Some lost millions, others tens of thousands, but all were emotionally devastated. They weren't just robbed of money, they were robbed of trust, pride, and their belief in good judgment. And in the middle of it all, a chilling question echoed through every interview, every article, every courtroom testimony. How did no one see this coming? Because Langston wasn't just a con man. He was a mirror. He reflected their dreams, their insecurities, their hunger for more, and in doing so, he made them complicit. That was his real trick. Not just stealing money, but making them believe they handed it over willingly. When the dust finally settled, there was no cinematic ending, no big courtroom drama with dramatic confessions, no dramatic apology tour, just silence, scattered lawsuits, and a trail of broken lives. David Langston was eventually found hiding in a private resort in the Cayman Islands, living under a fake name. He was extradited, charged, and sentenced. But for many, it wasn't justice. Not really. The money was gone, buried in offshore accounts, or funneled through so many fake companies it could never be fully traced. And the victims? They were left to pick up pieces of a life they thought was safe. A few managed to rebuild. They used their platforms to raise awareness, telling their stories publicly in documentaries, podcasts, and interviews. Not for sympathy, but to warn others. One former investor, a musician who had lost nearly $4 million, became an advocate for financial literacy in the entertainment industry. "We don't get taught how to handle money," he said. "We get taught how to spend it." Langston knew that, but most suffered in silence. Some took second jobs, others sold homes, declared bankruptcy, or quietly disappeared from the public eye. The shame clung to them, because in their minds they hadn't just lost money. They'd let it happen. They ignored red flags. They trusted charisma over credentials. And in a world where image is everything, admitting failure felt like career suicide. The Langston scheme didn't just expose a fraud, it exposed a system. One where fame is mistaken for credibility, where financial advice comes from Instagram DMs and dinner parties, where saying no feels like being left behind. And in the aftermath, the entertainment world began to shift. Slowly. Talent agencies brought in licensed financial advisors. Record labels hosted investment workshops. But for many, it was too little, too late. The story didn't end with a headline. It echoed quietly through every new deal, every signature, every too-good-to-be-true offer. Because what Langston stole wasn't just $300 million, it was a generation's sense of security. A chilling reminder that in the world of wealth and fame, the most dangerous lie isn't "you'll make millions." It's "you can't lose."